The lunge in all its many forms is so often blamed for knee pain. But moves are only as good as their implementation. We really have to understand a movement so that we can get more out of it, because we don't want to just be mimicking proper movement patterns. We actually want to make sure the correct muscles are working. Too often we end up demonizing this amazing move instead of learning to properly control it and load muscles correctly. And that overload is what leads to pain. When you don't engage the correct muscles to power the movement, you can prevent yourself from seeing the full benefit of all the amazing lunge variations out there. We don't take time to see all the tweaks to form we can make to work around previous injuries, adjust to our specific builds and mobility restrictions, not to mention even use variations based on our specific needs and goals. That's why I want to share 3 key form cues I use to help clients get more out of this amazing move while avoiding those common mistakes we often make that lead to aches and pains. Because we have to remember that form isn't as binary as we make it out to be. There are so many slight adjustments we can make to get more out of exercises so they fit our needs and goals. So what are 3 key cues to improve your lunge form? Cue number 1 is to maintain a more vertical shin angle. Ever hear someone say your knee can't go over your toes during lunging? This isn't completely true, but we need to understand why this statement came about. When our knee does travel further forward over our foot, there will be more loading of our quads. This is what, especially if we have previous knee issues or a lack of ankle mobility, can lead to lunges causing knee pain. So while you can actually intentionally perform lunge variations this way to strengthen your quads, you do want to know the drawbacks. You also want to make sure you have the proper ankle mobility to do this variation while keeping your heel firmly planted on the ground. Since so many of us struggle to activate our glutes, not to mention lack ideal ankle and even hip mobility, it may be helpful for us to avoid this positioning and instead focus more on maintaining a more vertical shin angle with our front lower leg. When you maintain that more vertical shin angle, you can actually engage your glutes more and make the move slightly more hip dominant. This can be key to help you avoid overloading your quads and therefore your knees. It can also simply be a tweak you use to target those glutes more during the lunge work you include. So if you struggle with quad dominance and getting your glutes to work, focus on that knee being aligned over your ankle as you lunge, whether doing a static lunge, reverse lunge, or even a front lunge. Cue number 2, keep your weight centered. Too often when we're moving forwards or backwards in a lunge, we let ourselves actually become off balance, which can lead to us overloading the muscles that support our knees. Even though with lunges you can move in every direction, you want to be conscious that you're truly keeping your weight more centered so you can smoothly push back to standing with no stutter steps. You want to correctly engage your front and back legs as they are both working, even if different muscles in each leg are working to different extents. One of the best ways to help learn how to keep your weight centered is by first making sure you've mastered that static lunge or split squat. To do the static lunge, start half kneeling on the ground with your back knee about under your hip. Your front knee should be over your ankle so your shin is vertical. Push the ball of your back foot and your entire front foot into the ground. Even think about your front foot as a tripod, 2 points in the ball of your foot and 1 in your heel. Squeeze your back glute and make sure to drive through both feet as you push up to standing. Make sure you use that front glute to prevent your knee from caving in. Focus on pushing the ground away to stand, then control that lower down. You may find as you stand up you want to shift forward instead of driving straight up, which is often what happens when we add movement to the lunge and creates that knee overload. So first, you must learn to control the static lunge and build mobility to perform it properly before you progress to adding in more movement. Regress to progress. Then as you begin to introduce movement, you can keep the lunges more shallow to focus on the weight being centered. Even implementing a pause at the bottom as you do begin to lunge longer and deeper can be a great way to assess where your weight is and correct any shifts. Remember, you have to earn those harder variations. You don't want to just mimic movements. You want to make sure the correct muscles are working. So when you're first trying to master that static lunge or split squat, make sure that you're driving straight up and your weight is centered between both feet. Cue number 3, focus on your foot's connection to the ground, your back and front foot. Our feet are our foundation. Instability there creates instability up our entire legs. That's why it's key you start your lunges by focusing on your feet. And not just the foot of your moving leg, but both feet to engage the muscles of both legs correctly. When you move through any lunge, think about the front foot as that tripod as you sink. Drive off your entire foot to stand back up. Note if you're rocking in or out on your foot, or if you find your foot turning in or out. You'll notice small changes in the muscles you're using and even your knee alignment based on your foot positioning. By really focusing on driving off that entire foot, you'll better use the muscles of your legs and glutes correctly and even avoid any knee overload. You'll help yourself keep your weight more centered. By focusing on your foot's connection to the ground, you can also avoid your knee collapsing in, which can be a huge source of knee aches and pains. And then don't ignore your back foot as well. While you may only be on the ball of that back foot, proper tension into the ground can help you better use that glute to drive the hip extension of the back leg. It can also help you avoid knee pain in that back leg. If you aren't conscious, you may find that your back knee is turning out as you rock in towards your big toe. This can overwork the rectus femoris, the quad muscle that not only directly connects to your knee, but also your hip, and lead to not only knee but also hip issues. Being conscious of our feet can help us better recruit the muscles of our lower body. It all starts at that foundation. Use these 3 cues to help yourself get more out of the amazing lunge variations out there so that you can really get the correct muscles working and avoid knee aches and pains. If you liked the video, make sure to like it, comment below if you have any questions, and subscribe. We're posting new videos each week.